What is going on YouTube? It's your boy Thunderbyte29 here, and yep, I am back today with another video. And today, we are once again going to be doing a tier maker video, ranking all Fortnite seasons from worst to best. Yep, you heard me. All Fortnite seasons. Not just Chapter 2 seasons, all Fortnite seasons, from Chapter 1 Season 1 to Chapter 3 Season 3. We're going to be ranking them from S tier to F tier. S means best, F means worse. So without further ado, let's begin, shall we? So, where do we begin? The very first season of Chapter 1. I'm going to put that in the A tier. I would normally put it S, but honestly, to be reasonable, I'm going to put it in A tier. I mean, it had a decent start, it had a decent loophole, pretty good map, but not many updates. But it did really good for a start of a game. And this was the beginning of the glory days of Fortnite. So I think it deserves to be in the A tier. Now, Chapter 1 Season 2 and Chapter 1 Season 3. I don't really have to talk about those much. These by far were probably my favorite seasons in all of Chapter 1. Probably this season would be my favorite overall, but this season by far was my favorite Battle Pass. I mean, these Battle Passes were great. The storyline was great. The maps were just spot on. It was just, the game was so enjoyable. And I just loved it. I mean, you had really great weapons. These seasons were not sweat shows until the summer of 2018, which would come in the next couple seasons. Now, Chapter 1, Season 4, I'm probably going to put that A tier. It wasn't bad. I mean, the map was somewhat decent. The storyline was still good. And I loved the loophole as well. But now, Season 5, I'm going to put that in the B tier. I think one of the biggest mistakes of this season, the reason why I put it in the B tier instead of A tier, the biggest mistake about this season, they literally launched Playground Mode. And this is where the sweat players formed. This was the beginning of Fortnite becoming a sweat show because it wasn't like the first 10 months of Fortnite. The reason why it was great, everyone sucked at it, but then they got better as time went on. But no, now you have Playground Mode, a separate game mode where you can pretty much train and know what the hell you're going to do in game. So for that alone, I think it deserves to be in the B tier. I mean, it wasn't a bad season overall. I still loved the season. I mean, I loved the events and everything, especially when they added that soccer stadium for the World Cup in 2018. It was amazing. Now, this season, on the other hand, I'm probably going to put that in C tier. It wasn't bad. It was just really boring. I mean, when you play something for so long, you're eventually going to get tired of it. I mean, the Battle Pass, I didn't really like it as much. I still like the loophole and everything. I still like the map in general. But honestly, I just didn't really have that much interest in it. So I think this was honestly the first Battle Pass I never made it to tier 100 because I just got so bored of it. But that's just natural. It had nothing to do with hate. And now, Chapter 1, Season 7. I know this might be an unpopular opinion, but I'm probably going to put this at the top of the C tier. I mean, I love the season overall. I really had a lot of joy for this season, but this was the first season where you had so much broken meta in Fortnite. A lot of overpowered meta. You had planes, you had the Infinity Blade, and that alone was just annoying as hell. But this had a really good loophole, an enjoyable map. The Battle Pass was somewhat decent. I did love the storyline though for this season. I mean, I did love the events as well, especially that snowstorm event where that covered the whole map into snow. I loved that too. That was pretty cool. The zombies though were a little bit annoying. So, everything about the season was great. And also, creative mode got released. And this arguably was where Fortnite began to die. Fortnite began to die right here. But I still think it was a good season. But you know what? Since I still think it was good, honestly, I think I'm going to put it in the B tier. I'm actually going to change my mind on that. But I think what deserves to be in the C tier is Chapter 1, Season 8. I know this is going to be a very unpopular opinion, but I'm putting it in the C tier. I mean, this season was also a really great season at first. But then the second half of it, that was where it began to make a downfall. Like, everything about it was great. But until they took out the pump shotgun, they destroyed Tilda Towers, they destroyed a part of Retail Row. This game became so spammy because of that alone. Like, I hated the combat shotgun because people just used it. It was so spammy and annoying. It was so OP, even at long range. It was just bad. I mean, the Battle Pass was somewhat decent. It had decent things in the Battle Pass. I mean, don't get me wrong, but I mean, I still don't think it was a perfect Battle Pass. The map was still decent. The loophole was great. It was almost 100% perfect until that happened. So for that reason alone, I think it deserves to be in the C tier. Now, Chapter 1, Season 9. I know this will once again be another unpopular opinion, but I think this deserves to go in the F tier. This was by far the worst season in all of Chapter 1. A lot of things about it I hated. The baller campers. You had 4 spam shotguns that season. And for the most part, it was that way until the last few weeks when they finally took out the combat and put the pump back in. Then you had the drum shotgun get introduced. That was also a trash shotgun. The map was okay, but it was just really boring to play. The ball campers is what bothered me the most. That's the thing about the season I really hated. The battle pass was also kind of trash. I mean, the one thing about the season I did love was the limited time modes. That's the only thing that kept me playing. So even though I think this was the worst season in all of Chapter 1, this was definitely not the worst season ever. But now, Season X of Chapter 1. Another unpopular opinion, this is going to be in the D tier. The reason why I'm not putting in the F tier, because Fortnite actually still cared about their community in some kind of way at that point. Of course, one of the most controversial things that they added into the game was the mechs, or known as the brutes. Everyone pretty much hated them at that point. You had one, you were unstoppable. If not, you were going to have a bad time. But one thing that Fortnite did that proved that they cared about their community was take them out. They took them out after 3 weeks. 3 weeks into the season, they were already gone. Epic still cared about their community. And they finally brought back a lot of old OG stuff from these previous seasons, which that's also what I loved about this season as well. So that's why I think this season was still slightly better than the previous one. And this was the last season of Chapter 1. Honestly, I still think, honestly, as much as I miss the old map, I miss the OG days of Fortnite, I still think it was a very smart decision for Epic Games to refresh and revitalize the game and go right to Chapter 2. So now, this will lead me to Chapter 2 seasons. Honestly, I'm probably going to put this in the C tier. I'm going to put that in the middle of the C tier. It was good. It had a really great start. You had a couple new weapons, you had a fresh new map, but this was the longest season ever in Fortnite history. It was the longest because it only lasted almost 2 seasons. Nobody knew what the hell Epic was doing at that point. I mean, when you play something for so long with no updates, it's going to get boring. So that's for that alone, that's why I think it deserves to be in the C tier, because it had a great start, but it wasn't bad. It was just boring as hell. But now let's go to Chapter 2 Season 2. Honestly, I'm going to put this in the back of the A tier. It wasn't a bad season. You had some nice change-ups. You had some old weapons get brought back. Even though this was the first time they used the IO guard system, which I really hated and despised the most. But this season, it actually worked, and I think the IO guard system should not have gone farther than it did. You had helicopters, which was pretty enjoyable. Definitely better than the planes, by the way. The loophole was pretty great. Then you had the bases, but the only thing about this that I really didn't like was the fact that all the weapons were stored in the same locations and everybody knew where they all were, so everyone would fight tooth and nail for them. That's the only thing about the season I didn't like, and that's what made it kind of boring. And it was also the second longest season in Fortnite history, but it was kind of understandably so because of COVID and all that. Oh shit, I said the word, I'm gonna get demonetized. But now, Season 3 of Chapter 2. I'm gonna put this also in C tier. It wasn't a bad season. Don't get me wrong. This season was also very boring. Actually, I'm going to put that right there. One thing about the season I really, really despised the most was how political they were getting, especially that whole BLM fiasco. The map was underwater for like the first 2 weeks. But Fortnite always has ups and downs. The charged shotgun, that was a pretty bad gun. This was the first season of shotgun flip-flopping. What I mean by shotgun flip-flopping is they would switch between either the tack or the pump being in the game. This was the first season that did that. I mean, the season also had the sharks, which you had that event from Discovery Channel, which I did think that was a pretty good event as well. Fortnite, half of the events in this season were good, but half of them were very controversial and very bad, especially when you should not be getting political in a video game, especially when it's dominated by kids. And now, this season, I'm also putting that in F tier, as always, because you guys pretty much know the drill. This season was just fucking awful. It was so boring as hell. You had Iron Man's lasers. I mean, these boss weapons were so annoying as hell. And another reason, it's not just because it's a collab season, as a lot of people would think. It was mainly because those boss weapons alone, because you get like 19 kills in squads. And then you just get killed by an Iron Man laser. Like, that's how fucking frustrating and annoying that season was. And the Halloween event was also pretty damn lazy as well. But I will admit, though, it did have a very good finale event. I will give it that. But not as good as the one from the end of Chapter 3, Season 2, but we'll get to that later. But now, Chapter 2, Season 5, I think I'm going to put that in the B tier. It wasn't a bad season, but the one big thing that they really messed up on was spamming collabs and TikTok emotes. That, by far, is one of the biggest flaws of this season. I mean, you had a desert area, a lot of people camped in sand. Of course, that happened. You had a really good loophole this season, which I will give it that. This was probably the last season that had really, really good loophole. But the collabs and stuff and the spamming of TikTok emotes and trying to be so greedy, that was their biggest flaw. That's why I do not put it in A tier, but I'm going to put it in the back of the B tier. And now this season, you know where it's going. This season was so fucking trash. Once again, even worse than Chapter 2 Season 4 by a long shot. No snipers. The map was done so well lazy. The battle pass was trash. Once again, spamming collabs. But it did have a good event. But everything about the season was just trash. And you all pretty much know the drill by now. Now, Chapter 2 Season 7. I'm going to put this in D tier. This season also made the same mistake Chapter 2 Season 5 did, but they did something else that was even bad on top of that. Once again, getting political. And this was the first time since Chapter 2 Season 3 they got political. And they didn't do it just once, but twice. You had the MLK event, you had Rainbow Royale, and on worse off, spamming collabs a lot more. It was on a worse scale, even worse than it was in Chapter 2 Season 5. So for that alone, I think it deserves to be in the D tier. It may have had a good event. Well, and also, not really. The event was boring as fuck. Just kidding. The event was boring. But now, Chapter 2, Season 8, I'm going to put this in the middle of the C tier. As much as I despise this also for collabs, but I also think this was a decent season. It had a decent loophole. The map was somewhat okay. Fortnite was trying to also add in some new change-ups, which I also like that as well. And I'll tell you what, I think one of the biggest bangers of this season was the Chapter 2 finale. And you can watch that video if you want to. I mean, as much as I think the Battle Pass was kind of trash, especially that pink unicorn guy who looked like that guy from that cow from back in the barnyard. And of course, all the collabs and stuff. It also had a good Halloween event. Definitely better than what we had in Chapter 2 Season 4. Way better. Better upgrade. And that's something that's always good to have in a Fortnite match. Or a Fortnite season, I should say. God, my wording is so bad today. Alright, and now, after that, now we're in Chapter 3. Now, this season was awful. I honestly think this season was worse than Chapter 2 Season 4. Reason why? There was barely any changes this season. Chapter 3 Season 1 was trash. It was literally. But the one thing that makes it better than these two, and the reason why this is not worse than Chapter 2 Season 6, was because it was a fresh new map. That's the only reason why. This season was also boring because this was a no skill season. You had people spamming with SMGs, MK7s, and the weapons were so OP they didn't even bother to nerf them. And there was barely any updates, and you had 60 Spider-Man web shooters all over the map. But the only thing about this that was really great was the new map, and that's the only reason why I would put this above these two. And now this season, honestly, I would probably put it at the top of the B tier. Chapter 3 Season 2, it had a really awful start. That's the reason why I wouldn't put it any higher than B tier. The launch of this was terrible. Half of the loophole was trash at the very beginning, and the shotguns were trash, the snipers were trash. They nerfed the snipers, they nerfed the LMG, but at least they brought back the MK7, but they at least nerfed it when they did. So for that alone, I think it deserves to be in the B tier, and the season was not bad. This was definitely better than most other Chapter 2 seasons that we've had in a very long time. But now for Chapter 3 Season 3. We've only been in this season for about a week, but honestly, it's already gotten pretty boring. So honestly, I'm probably going to put it at the back, or put it at the second top of the C tier. I mean, the battle pass on the most part was trash. The game is starting to become greedy and so money hungry once again. The loophole is still somewhat okay, except the shotguns and the snipers once again. But other than that, I still think it's an okay season, but not perfect. But honestly, I still think it might get better, that it might end up being in B tier, but for now, it's going to be C tier. So anyways, guys, thank you all so much for watching. What do y'all think of this tier list? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I know I'm probably going to get some backlash for some of this, but I don't really care. But anyways, guys, if you enjoyed this video or if you agree with me, please like this video, subscribe, share this video with your friends, and click the bell if you do not want to miss another video. And thank you all so much for watching, and please don't forget to like and subscribe for more. And I love you all to death. And until next time, I will see you all in the next video. And this is Thunderbite29, sign off.